Fire Emblem has always been a series inspired by Japanese anime. Even back in the 1990s, the franchise was taking clear aesthetic cues from classical shows of that era. As time has progressed, Fire Emblem has continued to take obvious inspiration from the tropes of Japanese animation, including over-the-top character designs and even full-on transformation sequences. Of course, one trope FE has adopted in recent years that some find somewhat controversial is the greater emphasis on fan service, particularly among its female roster. Now, obviously, this is not a trope exclusive to or even originating in anime, and it's not even necessarily a terrible one. Fan service is fine when done right, and sexy characters with revealing outfits have their place. However, when fan service winds up becoming the core of a character and it starts to overshadow everything else about them, that's when I start to take a bit of an issue with it. One prime example is the topic of today's video, Camilla. Camilla debuted in Fire Emblem Fates, alongside her other royal siblings. Camilla is the eldest princess of Nor, contrasting Hinoka in her role as the elder princess of Hoshido. This dichotomy is further cemented in the fact that they are both flying units, who make up for not having sacred weapons like their brothers with pure martial skill. In Conquest, Camilla is an ally to Corrin for most of the game. In Birthright, she is an enemy to be overcome. In Revelations, Camilla starts as an enemy before being recruited as an ally. Those who have played through Fates will most likely know at least a little bit of Camilla's backstory from her support conversations. She was a child born into the Concubine Wars, a series of secret conflicts between Garen's multiple wives to earn his favor. Camilla was raised as a tool by her mother, used as leverage for the king's attention, and taught to view her own royal half-siblings as rivals. In spite of that, Camilla wound up growing rather close with her remaining siblings, Xander, Leo, and Elise. When the dust settled, Camilla resolved to look after her remaining family, even becoming particularly attached to Corrin when they were finally adopted into the Norian royal bloodline. She developed a doting personality, likely a reflection of the love she wished her own mother had shown her growing up, even if she comes off a little strong at times. Camilla is also shown to be rather ruthless toward those who threaten the people she cares about, though can be surprisingly reasonable and even merciful when it comes to solving problems. A prime example of this is when Camilla wound up hiring an assassin meant to kill her as a retainer, showing that she can indeed be rather merciful despite her father's preferred punishment of swift and decisive execution. Indeed, the elder princess of Nor has quite a lot going on under the surface. Many of her support conversations reveal just how deeply she cherishes not just Corrin, but all of her siblings and even her retainers, even if she can be a little unhinged about it at times. She's capable of impressive generosity and even diplomacy. Unfortunately, most people seem to remember Camilla primarily as the sexy lady with huge assets and a yandere personality. This is hardly surprising when even the series itself seems to frequently reduce her to little more than that, especially in her games of origin. I mean, look at how the other Elder Royals are introduced for their respective boss fights. Takumi marches forward with the Fujin Yumi to stand at the head of an army, aiming an accusatory wind arrow toward Corrin and their party for their perceived betrayal. Ryoma steadily unsheaths his blade as he takes measured breaths, letting lightning crackle out from the Raijento to ignite the braziers around him. Leo rides ominously forth, reciting the Norian laws for the death penalty while the power of Brynhildr breaks apart the earth around him. Xander stands in Corrin's path as he draws Siegfried from its scabbard, letting the dark energy pulsing from the blade shake the very arena around him. Even Hinoka gets to show off her insane dexterity and riding capability, literally defying physics by using her Naginata as a helicopter blade before landing back on her Pegasus. And what does Camilla get for her cutscene? Boobs and butt. The camera zooms in on her barely concealed assets as she struts seductively forward, inviting Corrin to return to her with a sultry gaze and voice. Of course, the jiggle physics on her chest are in full effect as she moves. It is painfully obvious how the creators want you to focus here, and it makes it clear how they view Camilla as a character. Keep in mind, this is, again, supposed to be her introduction as a boss fight. To be fair, Fire Emblem Warriors executes this premise somewhat better. Camilla's intro cutscenes both lean way more into her menacing side, having her actually ride her wyvern into battle and show off her dexterity with an axe. Her boss encounter has her leap from her mount and ponder how best to execute you for your perceived slights against her, which definitely helps to sell how unhinged she is and definitely gives more of a threatening aura to the enemy you're about to face. Though, of course, the rest of the game continues to focus on her barely concealed chest, and she even literally makes a "my eyes are up here" joke at one point. Camilla's support conversations also basically double down on how obsessively overbearing her behavior can be, and she never seems to show any hint of growth in this regard. Now, admittedly, I can't say much about Camilla's role in the story of Fire Emblem Heroes, as I generally tend to veer away from gacha games as much as I can, but that game is not at all shy about continuing to exploit her sex appeal. Granted, it's a gacha game, so just about every female character falls into that trap to some extent. And to be fair, some of the alt outfits I've seen from Heroes are actually a genuine improvement over Camilla's original design. Regardless, it seems rather clear what the main priority here is with the rest of the alts. Camilla's next appearance is in Fire Emblem Engage, as an emblem bracelet. Specifically, she is the Emblem of Revelations. This annoys me way more than it probably should. Like, yes, she's a DLC emblem and thus not technically relevant to the main campaign, but come on. The other emblems are all meant to be protagonists or main characters in their respective titles, representing the history of Fire Emblem as a franchise. Corrin naturally wound up as the default rep for Fates, but then they chose Camilla as the second character to represent those games. Really? Not Azura, who is effectively the secondary protagonist of that subseries and the actual face of the Revelations route. Not Shigure or Kana, who served as protagonists in the Heirs of Fate DLC. Not even a shared emblem for Xander and Ryoma as the heads of their respective families. No, they chose Camilla. And we all know the reason why. She is the fan service waifu character of Fates, so of course they give her priority over everyone but Corrin to represent those games. Again, I cannot stress enough. There's nothing inherently wrong with Camilla being sexy. I don't even entirely mind Effie milking that sex appeal to an extent. The issue I have is that it honestly feels like her character is buried beneath all the fan service, and that problem is only growing worse with time. We've seen a similar situation with characters like Thorja, who likewise has been dumbed down to sex appeal and her pseudo-yandere personality. I think I'm starting to see a trend. But what do you all think? How do you feel about Camilla's treatment as a character? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and until next time, stay bright.